Robert Saleh is back on the sideline as defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. Notes from rookie minicamp, why Saleh came back, and some clues to as the draft process for the 49ers, the scouting process, and why Robert Saleh might have more power as a defensive coordinator here than he had as a head coach in New York. Roster moves, all that and more come up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Heard from a lot of you already this morning on Monday, wondering where the Monday morning podcast was. Croc and I are both traveling this weekend, so we're getting our Monday live episode happening here just prior to lunchtime on the West Coast, and we'll have that up on your audio pods, and then we'll come back and we'll have another one for you tomorrow morning, as we usually do. We're breaking down prospects tomorrow, continuing the 49ers rookie class, talking DBs, Upton Stout and Marcus Siegel. Interesting prospects the 49ers drafted. Some notes on Stout here from rookie minicamp on today's program. Today's program is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Go to monarchmoney.com and take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Croc, interesting.
Hey, real quick, yeah. I know we're talking about, we're going to get into the rookie minicamp and stuff, but no, all these videos floating around with all these other players and quarterbacks and receivers, and it's like, where's the 49ers stuff? You don't see a whole lot of the clips floating around for rookie minicamp, just stuff to get the fan base a little excited about what's going on, get them excited about the rookies. The most we get to get excited is like, yeah, we talked to Alfred Collins. He's a large man, and he saw CJ West, and he said, you know what? He's a large man too. Like, that's all we get.
Imagine, though, you're in the airport and you see Alfred Collins, you're like, okay, that guy's different. You know, it's 7-foot wingspan, 6'6", 330 pounds. Dude's large. He was large just standing on the sideline. That's one thing I saw was just a photo of big number 99. We can talk about some of the numbers. I know you have thoughts on that. I don't think any of the numbers are going to not. Some of the numbers are going to stick. Some of the rookie numbers, though, they wear in their first camp, they end up changing. And by the way, number 95 is open for Alfred Collins that he wore at college at Texas, because just after the end of last week, it was like, don't count me out, right? And all of a sudden, the weekend passes, rookie mini camp passes, and the San Francisco 49ers cut one of their edge rushers that we thought might still be a part of this team, that still might have an opportunity to hang around. So Drake Jackson has been released with an injury designation, wasn't able to pass his physical, so he is now a free agent. Number 95 is available if Alfred Collins wants to go there. But man, he was telling people not to count him out 2 days before he gets released by the San Francisco 49ers. So that was kind of the start of the weekend there in rookie minicamp. That's an interesting one. And so, yeah, again, where's that pass rush going to come from? It's not going to come from Drake Jackson this year.
It is definitely not. And I'm not saying that I got super excited by what he said, but, I always like a comeback story. I always like kind of the underdog. And I think Drake Jackson, with the way that his career has started for the 49ers, I'm sure this is not how he wanted it to work out. But, hey, man, he's grinding. He's working out. Some guys hit their stride at different times. Okay. He's telling everybody, hey, you guys are counting me out. I'm finna go crazy this year, basically what he was telling us. So I was excited, like, all right. And that was very short-lived, because, like you said, I don't even know if it was a full 48 hours later where he was waived or released by the Niners.
Yeah, that's life comes at you fast in the NFL, man. That's why they always say it stands for not for long. Thinking about rookie minicamp, I want to get into some of those notes. Gabriel says we need another demo to leak some of the minicamp clips. That was a good one. Got him in trouble a little bit from his rookie minicamp. And a lot of the footage we saw was from beat reporters. I honestly don't get too hyped. I know some fans do. I don't get too hyped. I don't like the whole slow motion. It's like, oh, everyone's at camp, and they show like the ball rotating in slow motion. Like, that doesn't do anything for me, right? So I like the beat writer clips where they show actually a full. But, I mean, it's rookie minicamp. They're not supposed to be any contact. You can't really tell anything from, like, offensive linemen or even running backs. You can, like, say, hey, guy looks big. I don't know. Apparently, Michael Williams stood out, though, in rookie camp. I know he knocked over one of the coaches or interns or whoever the guy is that is tasked with holding the bags, which is not a great job, I think, of all the jobs you can have at minicamp when a 6'5", 270-pound dude is just knocking you over. But, all looks good so far from the 49ers first-round pick, and he looks strong and looked the part of a first-rounder at 49ers rookie minicamp. So that's a good thing.
Maybe I haven't been paying attention enough, but has there been kind of the 49ers media, and I say media, like their actual media team, have they been pushing anything with some of these young guys? Because watching Carolina Panthers, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on McMillan, right? I wanted to call him Ted McMillan. He doesn't like being called.
He doesn't like that. Yeah.
T-Mac. All right. They're posting a lot of stuff on him. You go to Jacksonville Jaguars. Man, there is a ton of stuff being posted on Travis Hunter, I feel like, every day. Like, do the 49ers have the Cleveland Browns? And there's a lot of the fifth round guy, Shedeur Sanders. There's just a lot of stuff on him, right? And I get it. That's going to generate clicks and all those things. But I feel like a lot of these, Jackson Dart with the Giants, there's just a lot of coverage from their teams for those guys. And for the Niners, I feel like, and maybe I just miss it. Maybe I miss it, and my timeline is just flooded with those other teams. But who's the guy the 49ers are showing off? Like, hey, look at our prize guy. You guys should get this jersey. Get behind him. Like, I feel like it's like, nah. Like, but you got Robert Saleh for you to talk about.
Yeah, Robert Saleh's shiny head looks, I think, looks more dynamic than you can't have the slow motion clip of like footwork and hand placement for a defensive lineman. Alfred Collins is just standing on the sideline looking all huge. And so I think it's just less sexy with what the 49ers had at their rookie minicamp than if you got that rookie first round quarterback. That's kind of the thing. It's funny. There was a clip of Shedeur Sanders at rookie minicamp for the Browns. And it was like, I don't know what the headline was of the clip, but it was like, oh, look at throwing darts. He's on target, whatever. And it was like a 2-yard check down throw. It's like, what are we doing here anyway? So like, I'm not looking for that stuff. And so I might've missed it as well. So I'm not sure, but the one interesting player, if we're talking about rookie minicamp, that has been getting some hype. And again, it's one of those things at rookie minicamp. I don't think you can take too much away from it, but just showing up and looking the part is enough to wow some people. And Isaiah Nair, the undrafted rookie wide receiver out of Nebraska, he bounced around to a few different schools. He was at Texas for a short bit as well. And then he was, I don't know where he was before that. He was at like Wyoming or something like that before that. But this guy's huge. And I had to go to the tape post-draft because I didn't remember watching much Isaiah Nair before the draft. And he went undrafted. But the dude is 6'4" and long and ran 4.4 flat. He's a former track guy. And I was like, okay, well, I'm intrigued then. And everyone's saying he looks great at rookie minicamp. So I went back to watch him, Croc. He's an interesting prospect. He's all arms and legs. He looks like a track guy playing football. But I could see why in a camp setting, no pads, he would really wow you just by walking in and having his wingspan is nearly as big as Alfred Collins' wingspan. He's got like an 83-inch wingspan. So, I mean, he is huge and he is fast. Interesting player to take a swing on as an undrafted free agent. But, I would also say
he has a couple things working against him, though, Peacock.
Is he too long?
He's tall and fast. He's
tall and fast. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan's like, well, I'm not going to draft that guy. We can bring him as an undrafted free agent. He's tall and fast. I only like him tall or fast, not both.
Tim Patrick, the 49ers had Tim Patrick, and nobody would ever know. And Tim Patrick has been a long NFL receiver now. Mm-hmm. And at one point, he was kind of like wide receiver 2/wide receiver 3 for the Denver Broncos behind Cortland Sutton. And that was, we would have never known because he didn't even get a chance with the 49ers that rookie year in camp.
I always love when Tortilla Man just shows up in the live chat and lets us know he's here. Appreciate you, Tortilla Man, and all the everydayers that are out there right now. So, yeah, look, take it with a grain of salt. Some standouts from rookie minicamp. You always like to hear that your early draft picks at least look the part to start, and some interesting undrafted free agents, some interesting signings that the 49ers have added to the mix as well. Someone brought up Julio Jones. Not drafted.
I got a question for you.
By the way, Shanahan was not involved in that draft pick.
And now, Julio Jones, freak. Guys like him, Andre Johnson, freakish, right? And I remember when those guys were coming out, I mean, they were top 10 picks all day long. But my question is, if Kyle Shanahan had to draft them and not inherit them, would he have liked them? Like, it's easy to say, oh, I would have loved Julio Jones, or I would love AJ Green from that same draft with Julio, or I would love Andre Johnson. Like, I feel like it's easy to say that, especially when you look at what Kyle Shanahan did with those guys. But his track record as a coach for the Niners and somewhat decision maker when it comes to that stuff, that he just has strayed so far away from anything close to that it almost seems like he's better off inheriting a guy like that. Just be like, oh, look at this. He can do this, do this, do this. Okay, let me really target this guy 300 times in the season. But if he had a chance to pick those guys, and Julio, would he have been a Kyle Shanahan guy?
I think certain players would have been. And that's interesting you bring that up, because there was a report from Jeremy Fowler I want to talk about next. I want to bring up some more stuff from Robert Saleh and some clues to how the 49ers do things that are different from other teams around the NFL, why Robert Saleh is back with the San Francisco 49ers. But there is a rumor that the 49ers might have been interested in an offensive player had Mykel Williams not been there for them. And we'll get to that next. And you brought up a guy already in this podcast that some folks think that are plugged in, the Niners might have potentially drafted early in the draft next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever check your bank account? You wonder, where did all the money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, coffee every day? It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money, start building wealth. And maybe the best aspect of Money is the easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever, so you can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. So, Croc, before we get into some more of the Robert Saleh stuff, how about this from Jeremy Fowler? And there was talk that the 49ers might have taken an offensive player at 11 if Mykel Williams wasn't there. And my thought when I heard that wasn't so much, okay, what player that went later in the first round would the 49ers have drafted? My initial thought was, oh, well, if the Saints draft Mykel Williams, then that means they don't draft Kelvin Banks. So I was thinking that would be like, the Niners are like, well, we'll draft Kelvin Banks if he's there and Mykel Williams is not. And so that was my thought, not that the Niners would have taken somebody who went way later in the first round, like Josh Connerly or, even Luther Burden potentially there. But this from Jeremy Fowler over the weekend is interesting. Some draft intel. He dropped a nugget on all 32 teams. About the 49ers, he said, whispers of trading up persisted closer to and around the draft. The 49ers discussed trade options with the Carolina Panthers at number 8 that ultimately didn't materialize. I talked to a few teams picking high who wondered whether San Francisco would move up for a playmaker such as Tetairoa McMillan or Colston Lovelin. And the Saints had been linked to Mykel Williams, San Francisco's number 11 pick, so a trade with Carolina would have allowed the Niners to get ahead of New Orleans to be safe. Number 5 pick Mason Graham was considered to be a potential landing spot for the San Francisco 49ers as well. But apparently one of the reasons why the Carolina Panthers didn't end up trading is they thought the Niners might be trying to trade up for Tetairoa McMillan, doesn't like to be called Tet, instead of Mykel Williams. I call cap on that, as the kids say, Croc. But I think if the trade up was going to be for Mykel Williams and not a wide receiver, and if the Niners trade up for a wide receiver, the thing that probably they had to hold Kyle back in the draft room was trading up from 43 to get Luther Burden, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I don't have insider connections like Jeremy Fowler does.
Luther Burden looked like more of a 49ers receiver, right? Kind of fits the mold of kind of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. You could throw in there Ricky Pearsall as well, and he had a little bit Deebo Samuel to his game.
And look who the 49ers did draft in the 4th round.
Right. Kind of.
That's
I
close
don't
to
want to
that
say poor man's
prototype.
Luther Burden, but
Right.
But speed, not very tall, but a little bit not a skinny guy. Teteroa McMillan, T-Mac. I would have liked it, but yeah, I think I call Cap as well. And just because it's just hard to see the 49ers go after that guy because Kyle has had so many opportunities. It's one thing to say, hey, the 49ers, they don't like drafting corners in the top 11. And I can go through and say, well, when did they truly have an opportunity to just say, we're going to go all in and put this high-end resource on this cornerback position when the value met the need? And I would say, I don't know if they truly have that opportunity really throughout their entire tenure, as opposed to just not wanting to go cornerback. But when you look at the receiver position, I feel like they have had that opportunity to get that kind of receiver. And every time they've turned away, like T. Higgins was there. Like they could have went T. Higgins. And I'm not mad that they went Ayuk over T. Higgins. Ayuk has played very well for the Niners, but T. Higgins was there. CeeDee Lamb, and he's not as tall as Teteroa McMillan and these guys, but they had their shot at some of these guys, and they just never pulled the trigger on it. Like the CeeDee Lamb would have made more sense because you drafted him in the same draft, in the same round that you drafted Brandon Ayuk, right? And maybe you just prioritize Kinlaw more than CeeDee Lamb. But they've had opportunities to get those kind of guys, and they've always turned their back on it. So I call Cap as well. I don't think that Teteroa McMillan was in the cards for the Niners, and I think it may have been more of an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle, as opposed to a receiver. Because even if they did go receiver, okay, what does your receiver room start to look like? And I'm always big on plans. Like, what is the plan here? What are you trying to do here? I didn't understand the plan. They drafted Debo. You got him in the 2nd round. Awesome. Actually, they had a good rookie year. Then they turned around, drafted Brandon Ayuk, 1st round. And then my thoughts go straight to, well, if you drafted Debo and he played good, did you not expect him to get any better? Because at some point, you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. Then you drafted the receiver 1st round. Did you say, you know what, maybe we'll just see which one is good? Well, they both ended up being good, at least when it was time to get paid. And you struggled with paying one or the other, as opposed to just saying, oh, okay, yeah, we really prioritize what this guy does. And, hey, we may pay both of them. We're willing to have that kind of offense. Like, it's not the Cincinnati Bengals who want to throw the ball a million times to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, where you can go T. Higgins 2nd round, and then a year or so later, you can go Jamar Chase top 5, top 6, or whatever it was. 49ers, they don't have that type of offense, right? So I would have said, if they did go with Teteroa McMillan, what is your plan here? Because you did just draft Ricky Pearsall 1st round. You still had Juwan Jennings come back. You still just paid Brandon Ayuk a bunch of money, and he's coming off an injury. I would have questioned the plan a little bit.
And the place where Teteroa McMillan, by the way, I know he doesn't want to be called Tet, but I'm calling him Tet before I call him T-Mac, because that's just lazy, and there's already been a T-Mac. I'm not doing the T-Mac thing. That is the worst nickname lineage that we have right now in sports. We got to stop doing it. No A-Rods, no T-Macs. Let's call them by their name until there's an interesting nickname that makes itself available.
I think they come up with a nickname like that because they can't say his name.
Right. Teteroa, it's not that hard. You figure it out and then you say it. But Tet is just short.
I just call McMillan.
Yeah. JT Tuamoloau is another one too. It's like, I know you don't want to be called JTT, but it's like, how could someone not naturally call you JTT? Right. That's like people not calling me by my last name when I grow up and there's like 900 other Brians. Why would I not be Peacock? You got an interesting last name. Your first name is the same as 3 other kids in your class. Of course, you're going to become Peacock, right? Like
my brother, his name is Brian. So
yeah. So anyway, getting off the lazy nickname conversation, Teteroa McMillan is like the least Shanahan-y wide receiver I've ever seen. Like, that would surprise me. The thing that's interesting to me, though, is the Colston Lovelin part of that. What if Colston Lovelin, and that triggers everything, and the Niners maybe do consider that 2nd round trade of George Kittle? Would that have been one of the paths? I think that's even more, as crazy as that is, I think it's more likely than Teteroa McMillan to the Niners.
And I loved Lovelin. Now, I liked Lovelin, and clearly, if you listen to me talk, I liked Lovelin more than I liked Warren. All right, but I was shocked that he went as high as he did as well. Even though everybody was saying, "Oh, first round pick," but I did like Lovelin a lot more. I felt like I liked him a lot more than you did, and I feel like I valued him as a blocker more than you did. Where you're like, and I hear this a lot too. I hear a lot of people they're like, more of a receiver than blocking tight end, so maybe he compliments George Kittle. And I'm like, I don't know what film you and Peacock and everybody else was watching. I thought he blocked very well. I thought like that excited me. I'm like, oh, look at him down there blocking and getting in, and not saying he's George Kittle, but I feel like there, people are devaluing that aspect of his game a little bit, almost like George Kittle as a route runner, because he's such a great blocker, and in the run game, and he takes so much pride in that. It's like, oh, he's not a receiver tight end. It's like, what? Do you guys watch George Kittle run routes? He's like super fluid, gets in and out of his breaks, gives you head fakes. I mean, he's out there lined up one-on-one, beating guys like Stephon Gilmore in his prime, right? Like he's a terrific route runner, but because he's so good at blocking, they overlook it. And I think that was kind of the case with Lovelin. And I'm not even saying like he's just this amazing pass catching tight end. Like I didn't see him as a Ingram when he was coming out of Ole Miss, where it was like, man, 4.44 40. I thought he was a receiver the whole time at Ole Miss. It's like, wait a minute, this guy's a tight end. Like that was a legit receiving tight end. I'm not saying Lovelin is like that, especially as like an explosive pass catcher, but he was really good as a pass catcher. And I feel like because he was good, and that was like his best value, his blocking was kind of overshadowed a little bit. And I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I mean,
I could see them like him. I say all that to say I could see the 49ers, if they saw it the same way I did, I think they did really like him.
And as a former corner, Croc, I'm not surprised that you would think that that's a really great blocker, and that any kind of physicality, like you don't want to mix it up with that. And you're like, okay, yeah, that guy's a great blocker. I don't want to try to set the corner on that guy. I don't want to set the edge there. But seriously, he's a super talented guy. Could that have been one of the areas? I still doubt it. I think Mike Williams was probably their guy. And like, you just look at their defensive line. Robert Saleh's talking about it. Like, how could you have gone through the draft and not addressed that defensive line with your early picks? I just think that's the way the 49ers were going to go in this thing. And we saw them draft 5 defensive players in a row. I think that was the plan coming in. All the other stuff is fun to talk about, though.
Now, you definitely have to have a legit defense in the 49ers, whenever they've been good since 2011. A lot of times it's been the defense leading the way. But when you are going to invest a ton of money in your quarterback, could they start to say, you know what, maybe we have to change our philosophy a little bit? Like, can we have maybe a good defense, but not a dominating defense, right? But let's create the opportunity to outscore opponents and kind of change up how we do things a little bit. Like, could that have been a thought? Because the defense, I mean, someone just brought up the linebacker that I can't name. Did you bring him up? Or maybe somebody else on Twitter just brought him up?
No, which linebacker?
They were like, oh, here's Croc's guy. And it's the linebacker, I don't know his name. I keep asking, like, well, who is this guy? And you're like, oh, he's more for special teams.
Oh, Luke Gifford. Yeah.
Right. So you got the Giffords of the world. No disrespect. Also got like NFL career. Great job. But you got those guys out there who aren't ideally your starting backers. Or you had some guys on the line. I love Kevin Givens as a rotation guy, not as a heading into the season this year starter. So they had to address it. But maybe they could have said, you know what, let's get a Tedero McMillan and try to just outscore people. And we could still go Alfred Collins. We could still go Stout. We could still go, all those guys, right? That they end up going with defense, Martin and all those guys. But let's start to create a little bit more firepower offensively, because, well, we're going to pay our quarterback a lot of money. We have to be able to put up points. Now, that doesn't always work, because we just saw that with Joe Burrow, who lost 4 games where one he scored 38 points, another 2 he scored 34 points, 34 points, or 33 points. So sometimes you just can't outscore a disastrous defense, even when your quarterback is playing at an extremely high level. But maybe that there could have been maybe a shift in their thoughts of we like Brock a lot. We love him. Let's outscore teams.
Your quarterback has to if you're going to pay that much for a quarterback, they should be able to elevate the rest of your offense too. And so, and I think we see a lot of teams go that route. And so I think there's a lot of ways you can slice it. But there's a reason I think the 49ers did a lot for Robert Saleh's defense. Saleh talked about it and then gave some clues into how different organizations operate. We'll talk about that next. So aside from being paid a lot of money, Robert Saleh talked about all the friends and what he owes to the organization for giving him his first shot as a defensive coordinator, and talked about Kyle and in the front office and ownership and some of the reasons why he came back. But one of the things that the 49ers do, and I think there's some good and bad to it, is the collaboration process in the draft. And Robert Saleh talked about how much they lean on their coaches in the draft and how much say the coaches had. And listen to him talk about other organizations and how the 49ers do it. And we get asked a lot, Croc, about, okay, well, look at what the Jets did in the draft. Is how much has Robert Saleh's philosophy changed? Might he be looking at more of a lighter speed type of an edge rusher? Because they drafted Will McDonald, number 15 overall out of Iowa State in the 2023 draft in the first round, right? And he was 240 pounds, or might have been like 239. He was not big, even though he played more physical than his size. And I think we've seen that maybe that's probably not the case. But I think what we also are learning about this is it kind of is crazy to say, but there's a very real chance, and I think it's legitimate, that Robert Saleh has more say about the 49ers draft as a defensive coordinator than he had about the New York Jets draft as the head coach of the football team. Because that draft is run by the GM first. This draft is the head coach is in charge of this football team, and the coaches have a lot more say. And it's crazy. It's kind of crazy to think about. I think Robert Saleh for sure had more input as defensive coordinator of the 2025 draft than he had as head coach of the 2023 draft for the Jets.
I think a big part of that is just people valuing your opinion. And he went to a place in New York, and that's not to say that they didn't value him as a head coach. But when it comes to, picking the groceries, it's like, look, we brought you in to be the CEO guy and maybe call defense, put some guys in position to call defense, which they did with Ulbrich. But we want you to just change the culture more so than draft the players. So we're going to go Sauce Gardner, number 4 or number 3, whenever he was drafted, right? Like, because that's who we just believe he's the best player there. So we're going to draft him. We're going to draft Will McDonald, even though he's different than the guys that you have typically have. But hey, we're giving you an athlete, so just figure out a way to work with him. Like, he's a good defensive lineman. He got pass rush ability. Figure it out. Put him in a position to where he's going to be successful. Whereas he goes to the 49ers and they're like, hey, it hasn't really been smooth sailing since he left. Who do you like in this draft? And they're valuing his opinion a little bit more when it comes to picking the groceries, because he actually has to use them now. Like, you're the guy. You're not over. You don't got to worry about the rest of the team. You should focus on this side of the ball. What do you need to get us back to what we were a few years ago?
I think it's been one of the strengths, the collaboration, and sometimes the weakness, because I think that scouts are better scouts than coaches, right? And coaches see things differently and might view things differently, and it might lead to some of the reaches the 49ers have made in the draft, because the coaches see a player and they need a fit. And like, I need a linebacker. I don't care what the value is. I don't care if he might be available in the 5th round. I want the best linebacker right now. So I think there's two sides of that. I think there's some good and some bad with how much the coaches have a say in the draft process for the San Francisco 49ers. But clearly they are as involved, and maybe one of the most involved coaching staffs in deciding who the 49ers draft in the NFL.
I was watching a clip on the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was interesting. You hear the GM, who's kind of widely known as like the guy now, and he's done a terrific job with that roster for sure. But Howie
Roseman, yeah.
Howie Roseman. All right, there we go. It was interesting just listening to him say, hey, who do you guys like? And everybody's kind of throwing out, well, I like this guy, and he was a 5-star quarterback in high school, and had this going on and this going on. All right, who else? Offensive lineman, where we at? Then they give the offensive lineman. And I don't know if he just was like, all right, I'm still going to draft who I want, but maybe this is making you guys feel like I value your opinion with it. but maybe he's just going to draft the guy he wants because, like, hey, I'm the GM. I wonder how involved John Lynch is like that. Like, I've never seen that side. Now, maybe the 49ers just haven't afforded us to see that side of John Lynch, but we're just like, all right, John Lynch, you're the GM. And then John Lynch is just in the center. And he's like, and you could just tell when Howie Roseman was sitting there, it was like, that's the guy. Like, that was how it felt.
Yeah.
Right. Do we ever feel like that with John Lynch? It almost feels like you're kind of the puppet a little bit. I don't want to be disrespectful to him, but it doesn't come off that. I've never viewed him the way I viewed Howie Roseman in that clip.
Yeah.
Of just taking control of the war room. I'm the guy. Hey, who do you like? Okay. It felt like he was more involved where maybe the 49ers involved the coaches more as opposed to just the GM. But that was kind of the vibes I got.
Some of these other GMs, and there's a lot of clips of, same with Indy with Ballard. Not that the Colts have drafted better teams than the 49ers have or anything. We saw it with the Joe Douglas in New York. You see it with a lot of teams. It's like, okay, what's your input? All right, well, we're going to draft this guy that I chose, but thanks for letting me know, right? It's like when you go shopping with your kids, they're like, I want this. And you're like, nope, we're not drafting. How about this one? We're going to take this one. We're going to get these bars, not these sugary bars. These are bad for you. We're going to get this one. It's going to be good for us. So someone has to be the spearhead of the whole thing. And the Niners are run by Kyle Shanahan. And John Lynch, it's always been collaboration, which is a strength of the organization too. It's a good thing, but I think in some ways it would be nice to just say, you know what, I'm going to trust my scouts here. And John Lynch is like, we're going to pick the best guys and you're going to coach them. Coaches coach, scouts scout, broadcasters broadcast, right, Croc? And analysts analyze. Like I do believe that wholeheartedly.
Here we go, Lee. Coaches as scouts, does that usually work?
Yes and no. It's a double-edged sword, like I just said. Yeah, like the Niners have made some really bad picks because Kyle Shanahan can't go to sleep at night if we don't go trade up for whatever, right? Like there's been awful picks that were based on that. But it's the same. It's the way they found Brock Purdy too.
There's some luck, right? There's some luck with some of this because I do believe that Deebo Samuel was a Kyle Shanahan guy. Do you remember the other receiver like that? The reporters were saying this was his guy, but he was taken a few picks earlier. Do you remember who the 49ers were going to take instead of Deebo Samuel?
Oh, N'Keal Harry. That would not have turned
run
out
after
great.
Catch guy. Like run after catch. They probably saw the highlight. Kyle was at home watching the highlights, like, "Ooh, look at this run after catch." Not knowing, like, bro, Eric Crocker is on Twitter saying this. He plays like the 28-year-old version of Dez Bryant, like not the 21-year-old version of Dez, the 28-year version where everything has to be a jump ball. And because he's, playing in the Pac-12, it looked like good run after catch, but it's like, that ain't prime Dez Bryant. That ain't what Dez was coming out. Like, I didn't like him much, but I also liked Hakeem Butler in that class. So he's playing in the UFL.
Real quick, some notes. The 49ers are adding some players. Andre Dillard, offensive tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere, offensive tackle as well. Both came from the Titans at one point in time. Former first-round pick for Andre Dillard has kind of not been great in his NFL career. They already, right after the draft, the 49ers signed DJ Humphries as well. So clearly, they weren't able to pull out some offensive linemen and offensive tackles in the draft. So they're bringing in some guys, and I think they're just trying to see what sticks. And I don't know if you should expect a lot from Dillard or Petit-Frere. They've started games in the NFL, so they're NFL players, right? And they're going to boost the depth of your football team and cover for some injuries as well. But if the worst team in football, the Tennessee Titans, were trying really hard to not have them play for them and try to replace them with some other guys, I think that's probably pretty telling about what to expect from Dillard and Petit-Frere. But, as far as depth signings go, Niners didn't draft anybody, so they got to try to add some free agents. I think that's what's going on there. And I actually didn't even see this one, but the 49ers are bringing in Gabe Davis on a tryout sort of a visit. Is that what's happening right now? Visiting means not signed yet. Davis is a good football player. Do the 49ers clearly are trying to do something at wide receiver. I think what they really need, I don't get the Demarcus Robinson signing because he's going to be suspended for the same amount of time that Brandon Ayuk's recovering from his ACL. You need someone who can play right away. And that's probably the thought process with Gabe Davis, a guy who can start games and can give you something right away. So that's why that would make sense to me.
Yeah, Gabe Davis, not a high volume guy. And I think, they wished it would have went a different way in Jacksonville, but watching him in Buffalo could be a little different. I mean, you got Josh Allen throwing you the rock. He was a good football player. And he wasn't a high volume guy. You weren't going to target him 8 to 10 times a game, but hey man, take these 3 or 4 catches in the game. And I think that fits in perfect with what the 49ers kind of need. You got a bigger guy on the outside, a field stretcher. He's not going to require a ton of targets. I think he's a good fit for the 49ers while you have these other guys out. I'm not opposed to it at all.
I do want to say here, someone brought up Bill Walsh talking about coaches that are in charge of personnel. Like Bill Walsh is in a category of his own. He was a master at what he did in building a dynasty for the San Francisco 49ers. We don't compare people to Bill Walsh, right? That's trying to compare a league average shooting guard to Michael Jordan. We don't compare to Bill Walsh. He was an awesome coach. He was an awesome innovator. He was ahead of his time in so many ways, and he understood what kind of football team he wanted to build, and he was really good in the GM role. And he had both. And Bill Parcells was really good at building some teams for a long time. For a long time, Bill Belichick was good at it, and then Bill Belichick, the GM, became awful and really hurt Bill Belichick, the head coach, at the end of his tenure with the New England Patriots. So even sometimes when it does work, it stops working too. So you can't skip over the scouting process, I don't think. And I think you can make some really weird short-term decisions if you're based on the coaches. And I know Chris Kasarik, the defensive line coach, has a lot to say about the defensive lineman in the 49ers draft. Heck, he grew up in the same town as Alfred Collins. I hope that's not the reason they drafted Alfred Collins, right? Because there's some weird connection. The 49ers, I have a lot of connections with a lot of the decisions they make as well. And I remember
there's this corner, and he ran a 4.3, and man, he's got some length, and he's got feet, and he's got hips. I think that's the guy we should take, John Lynch. And he's like, nope, I had a class with this guy, so we're going to take him at 3 instead of this corner who ended up being in the Pro Bowl cornerback.
That is pretty funny. The only time in NFL history that a GM has shared a class with a guy that he drafted. That was the first pick the 49ers made in this regime. Be interesting there. So anyway, they've done some great things, and they built the Super Bowl rosters too. So, we kind of poke fun at some of the things the 49ers do. The collaboration is the strength. It's a strength of the organization, I think. But obviously there's been some weird picks, and I think a lot of the really weird picks have had a lot of coach fingerprints on them as well. So I do think the proper way to structure it is someone has to spearhead it. Someone has to be the adult in the room. Someone has to have the vision of how they're building the roster, and they make those final decisions, and they do take input from other people. I think that's important, but it can't just be like we're voting while we're on the clock. That's a little weird to me.
Very.
Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there. Make sure you're subbed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Croc and I back tomorrow, later today on YouTube, actually, on Monday evening. Talking DBs, Upton Stout, Marcus Siegel, breaking down everything going on with the San Francisco 49ers every day, right here, Locked On 49ers.